What is happening, everybody? We are sitting here at the vertical table today talking about the Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation. That's what we've been talking about all week. It's what we've been talking about all month. And we're going to be talking about other stuff pretty soon because we are in the home stretch. There's only a couple days left on the Kickstarter, and we're trying to get this thing as far as we can. We are chasing stretch goals. The more folks who contribute to this and back this drive, the more that's going to end up in this book. And honestly, if we stop here, it's going to be awesome already. We've covered our baseline. We're going to have 50 spreads for player character archetypes, chock full of content for players to make better characters and for game masters to create adventures around those characters or adapt existing content to those characters in a way that makes everything just feel perfectly crafted to the characters that the players are bringing to the table. And the concept for that, other than like I'm never afraid of running out of ideas just in case my world goes on fire, which if you haven't experienced, you haven't been playing for very long. I've had several towns burn down, and metaphorically, I've seen plenty of plans go sideways on me because I thought the players were going to zig and they zagged, or somebody cracked the code, or asked a question that I hadn't even thought of. So yeah, there are multiple ways you get to that game master scramble, and that's what keeps it exciting. That's what keeps it a game for the game master, right? I think some beginners out there and maybe some seasoned veterans out there like this concept of being like the puppet master, and maybe it's a little less creepy than that. Maybe you're just like creating this perfectly curated experience for your friends or your family, and that's cool and all. But the game master is also a player at the end of the day. And while each player has a character, the game master has the world. And the interesting thing about running the world instead of your character is that the world will start to do stuff if you let it. If you release a little bit of control, not only to the players, but to the dice and to a tool set like this, all of a sudden connections start forming, and it becomes obvious that this particular non-player character, or the big bad evil guy, or this particular faction would act in a certain way, would view things under a certain light, and all of a sudden it no longer feels like you making the decisions. The world that you have created or curated, customized from some collection or some pre-existing module, it becomes responsive. It becomes alive. And that's the explosiveness. That's the energy that I'm trying to capture, most nights at my table and in this tool set. The idea is that this isn't a book of answers, right? This is a book of ideas. This is a book of conceptual nuggets that are going to serve as fuel for your fire. And you'll see as we go through this, we're going to make an adventure for 4 characters. We actually rolled them up last night, and we made a whole adventure mostly focused on an acolyte, like a cleric, perhaps a paladin. There were all these interesting parallels that came up, though, between everybody's background. Everyone had some sort of connection to an antagonistic faction in this kind of town or city setting, whatever you're running, Phandalin or Otari or Waterdeep or, the Spire or Sigil. Come fight. I don't even know if anybody's here yet, but come fight me in the comments. Actually, I don't have a dog in that race. I like Sigil, but because Sigil's a thing, so I guess maybe it is Sigil. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's Planescape. I've been very focused on this. So I actually haven't got my hands on Planescape yet. I am not one of these old school folks who've been playing for 30 years. Or 20 years? When was Planescape? Probably closer to 30 years, because the world's a little bit older than we think, ladies and gentlemen. We just found out, tangent, but we just found out that our concept of how long people have been in the New World, right, in the Western Hemisphere, at least in the North America, right, which kind of implies South America, we just doubled how long we thought that was. There's footprints in White Sands, which is a beautiful, it wasn't a national park when I was there, but it was part of the national park system. Anyway, White Sands is a beautiful little spot in New Mexico, and there are these footprints there, which are very clearly human footprints, and we just figured out that, oh yeah, they're about 10,000 years older. 10,000 years, I can't even conceptualize that. 10,000 years older than the earliest human habitation we thought. You know, I was taught at the turn of the century, before the turn in the last century, I was taught that people came over the Bering Land Bridge at the end of the last ice age, and that turns out it wasn't the case at all. When the glaciers ate up the top half of North America, top third of North America. Canada's pretty big. Maybe it's the top half. People were here watching and adapting. So yeah, the history of the world, it gets more and more interesting, and the adaptations of your world, see that? That's what we call a transition in the business, can get more and more interesting as we use all of these things. We have a 2-page spread here for all of this material, and we are going to be focused more on the game master's side of things. The left-hand page is in part built for character creation. More and more, I think people are getting used to the idea of sharing some of this in a session 0 type situation, or between sessions, perhaps. You don't have to start a new campaign with us. I'm doing it right now, and it's very exciting. It's proven to be a very useful, cool tool, and it's already made. We're going to run Shattered Obelisk in 2 different groups, and it's just so much more engaging for me, and it feels like for the players, because they already have a stake in the game. We haven't sat down to play yet. I'm still in my little Kickstarter timeout here, but all of the players have non-player characters embedded in the story now. My job is to go get them embedded in the story. But when we rolled up the characters, we took these double page spread layouts side by side here, and we rolled up character motivations, so everyone has a reason to go on an adventure, which is important and often overlooked. We have a call to adventure. We have like a bit of an origin story. We have eyes on a character arc. And you'll see as we get into it, these are a little more abstract. These are potential trajectories. So your character's starting somewhere, and they've got somewhere in mind to end up. Some room for growth. Interesting characters change over time. And it only makes sense that you would be affected by the events that transpire, right? Maybe you are leveling up in power, right? You're gaining new skills and abilities, and your character is static. Your character is the same at level 10 that they were at level 1 after having several brushes with death and becoming much more capable. So yeah, having that from the get-go is interesting, but if you're in the middle of a campaign, inserting that can definitely enrich the experience, especially with the character arc. You can go pick and mix and grab new ones, because there's no end goal. If you're not growing, you're dying. He not busy being born is he who's busy dying. So those are definitely targeted for the player characters. Can we use them to make an NPC way more interesting? Yep, we did. And I will again, and you can at your table in a matter of 3 dice rolls. It doesn't even have to be in prep. Why is this guy doing what he's doing? Well, yeah, here's 20 options. Maybe one of these will fit or spark my imagination. The second column on that first page has friendly factions and allied NPCs and magic items. Put up a couple shorts today on the social medias. They were a little bit longer than a minute, so they didn't quite make it to the YouTube shorts. The algorithm doesn't like when I do that anyway. But yeah, bespoke magic items. So I've handed out magic items at level 1. I mean, one group is level 5, so it feels easier, right? But all of my level 1 characters have some sort of bespoke magic item out the gate. Is that going to cause things to be a little bit imbalanced at first? Maybe a little bit. Are my players way more happy to start with a magic item? Yes. And I suggest people can use this, and we talked about this in the short, people can use this as an additional set of like plot hooks, right? Or you want to bait a plot hook. Take this calibrated for your particular type of character. Take this magic item, right? And maybe we're talking about the higher level powered, the higher power leveled items in this instance, but take that and you don't have to hand it to the player at level 1. You can put it in the dungeon. You can put it at the bottom floor that they won't reach for until it's level appropriate, right? You can give it to them a little bit early. You can imbalance the game for, you know, a session or two so that they really feel that power creep. Kill big things quicker. Yes, indeed. Or kill a lot of little things quicker. And it's not all just damage in there. There's some real potential for creative use. Let's put it that way. Now, on the Game Master side of things, the things that we're going to be looking at, the next page, we are going to take antagonistic organizations, rival NPCs, evocative locations, and everybody's favorite, thematic monsters. Well, is it everybody's favorite? I think everybody's favorite is the magic items. My favorite might be the monster concepts in here. As you can tell, I am recalibrated towards like a 5e experience because that's what I'm prepping right now. But all of this stuff could be plugged into a Pathfinder 2nd edition game, or even an old school OSR, maybe Shadow Dark. Any edition of any fantasy, high fantasy tabletop role-playing game, these are going to be appropriate because a lot of these are all very conceptual. When you get into the monsters and the magic items, yeah, you're going to have to put numbers down to things. But I've been very careful to make this as adaptable and universal as possible because, personally, I don't know what I'll be playing in a year. And I don't think anybody out there really knows what they'll be playing in a year. I think most people assume it's going to be D&D, but we don't know what that D&D looks like. We know what the playtests look like, and it doesn't seem all that different. I get a Bastion. I am excited conceptually about Bastions. But we might be playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition Revised. We might be playing Dagger Hearts. We might be playing the Inevitable. What are we calling the MCDM system? There is a ton of stuff in the works. There is I want to incorporate into my Lord of the Ring edition of Monopoly, the Compendium or D&D. One of the last week's video was about mini games and how you can tell when I'm thinking about new editions beyond the Compendium. I'm thinking about ways to show, especially like newer people, that you can rip this stuff up, use it for parts, put it back together however you want. There's a lot of doom and gloom out there right now about what the new edition's going to be, or what Hasbro's plans for the future of D&D are. And a lot of channels are getting a lot of views for that, and I do not besmirch anybody playing the algorithm. And if we all stopped, responding to negative stimuli more than positive ones, then like maybe the world would be a nicer place. But it ain't. You can't get mad at clickbait when you clicked on it. That's all I'm saying. We're going to take this channel to the moon in the next couple months, and I'm going to do it by getting dirty. No, I don't know. But yeah, there's a whole cottage industry there's a whole corner of D&D YouTube now that it just follows the Hasbro mishaps. And at the end of the day, if they tank Dungeons and Dragons, as much as they want to, they can't send the Pinkertons to all of our houses. Those books are going to stay on your shelf. You can run 5th edition for the next 30 years. There are people looking at the white box trying to make it work. There are people running advanced D&D today. There are people running 2nd edition. There are people playing 3.5. There's a growing movement of people playing 4th edition. This stuff doesn't go away. They're just adding more options to the pile. And on a lot of tables, especially a lot of like tables that have been going for a while, they're not playing any one particular game anymore. They have attached all of this homebrew to it, or taken bits and pieces from different systems that they like. In the next month, I think I'm gonna take a deeper dive into Dungeon Coach's new system. That's a guy who thinks a lot about mechanics, and I like his vibe. I like his energy. He seems like a very good dude. Never met him. Talked to him a little bit, and yeah, he seems like a genuinely good person, and it seems like a genuinely good system. I mean, he's taken the best approach, I think, where he hasn't decided what his principles are to start. He is looking, I mean, this is surface level, but it seems like he looked at what's out there and what's working and what's not working and learned from all of that. He didn't just reinvent the wheel. He didn't start from zero. He didn't say, you know what would be cool in an abstract way. He looked at what was cool. He looked at what was working. I mean, Alcanders, he came out with a book of like homebrew add-on optional rules for 5th edition. He's a tinkerer on the rule set. I'm more on the narrative side, on the tinker side of things, and the table sandbox side of things. If you've been with me for a while, you know I do like my tables, and if you haven't been with me, most of the screen is now tables. This is the Acolyte spread we were working with last night. We didn't develop the character so much as an adventure around that character. So anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to Dungeon Coach's DC 20. Check it out if you haven't already. We'll be talking. If you want me to talk about it, let me know in the comments here, or come find us on Discord. But yeah, I have high hopes. I have high hopes for that. The project last night was to make an adventure. And we made an awesome adventure. We had a cabal of lizard people who were run by the Tooth Fairy. And that sounds ridiculous, but if you were with us, you knew that some very mysterious fey creature who sneaks around at night, that, you know, can fly, is maybe invisible. And this thing is collecting mouth bones. Why are they doing that? And in the process, corrupting the city watch and the nobility and the. Actually, I got it in front of me here. We had the Acolyte was really driving the story last night, but we had an acrobat, we had an artist, which we barely touched on. We just pulled the plot hook from the artist, and we had an artisan and a barkeep. So that's our stable today, and there's this thing that happens, which is called anchoring in certain circles. You get the one idea, and everything starts to like coalesce around that, which is awesome. It's like a Katamari of creation, but you want to be mindful of where you pull that first idea, because everything else starts to automatically become related to that idea. So we started with the Acolyte because it's in alphabetical order, and we ended up with a Acolyte themed adventure because I kept coming back to that. So let's start with the barkeep. Let's start at the end this time. We had a lot of fun with the artisan. We did a deep dive on the acrobat earlier. So let's look at the barkeep. I keep talking about how happy I am to have shared the barkeep with you all. This was going to be 5 elements, 5 spreads, and I made it 7 in this sample because I had to get the barkeep in there. So we're gonna roll dice. Anybody who's in chat right now, if you want to give me a 4d6s, we're not rolling for stats, but it might feel like it. We're gonna roll 4d6s, and you know what? To start us off, to anchor this, we're gonna roll a d20. We're gonna get our plot hook. So I'm going to take this sweet tower, that my bud Mike made for me. I won this thing playing stupid Temu games. Got it for free. And I mean, it's pretty cool, but it did not look this cool when it showed up. Look at the pond with the treasure in it. Yeah. It did not look this cool until my friend painted it for me. So let's roll a d20. Can you see that? I can't. That is a 10. So what we just did was got a plot hook, which is really all you need. If you have an adventure in mind already, you can go shopping. The reason this is the biggest part of all of this, the plot hooks take up the most real estate, is this is the stuff you're going to need again and again and again and again. And these are key to motivating the characters. There's a set of character motivations in here. Why is your barkeep no longer a barkeep or no longer just a barkeep? Why are they out here adventuring? Important to know, but why specifically do they care about this adventure? What's in it for them? What did the non-player character that they have a relationship with, what did they come in asking for? Or what was the posted on the job board in town or down at the local tavern, right? After renting a room last night, a patron left some sort of egg behind, and now it's about to hatch. I freaking love that one, but we used that already in one of these streams, and we could run with that again because there's a ton of potential there. And honestly, let's just put that on the shelf for last night because we had the tooth fairy was laying eggs in teeth. It got real weird. But this is the afternoon. This is the sunshine edition. So let's re-roll, and you can do this. I'm giving you permission. If you get a result and you don't like it, and you're the game master, you can re-roll. Roll with advantage. Pick one that you like. 17. An inebriated patron confesses to a secret that could plunge the whole empire into civil war. Man, all right. So that's got a lot. That's got a lot of potential. I'm getting political intrigue right out of the gate. Now, you can see this is calibrated for a barkeep, but you could use that for anybody, right? You're going to end up in the tavern. If you didn't start there, as is tradition, and I think we should embrace tradition in very few ways, but I think starting in the tavern, that's one tradition I will uphold. Come fight me about it on Twitter. that death spiral of a place. An inebriated patron could be any. I mean, maybe you don't go to the tavern, they come stumbling out, right? Mumbling to themselves about a secret that could cause civil war. And what is that? That could be anything. We're going to find out together right now. But what is that in... Well, no, we're going to get into spoiler territory very quick. And I got players in the chat. Secret that can cause civil war. And yes, would it be more conducive to live streaming if I were typing this up on Microsoft Word or Notes or whatever? Absolutely. But I will tell you, there is something about physical paper and pens and dice where you live in a very digital world, and we're not going to talk about it too much more, but if Hasbro has their way, it seems like we might be going to an all-digital world. And the tactile nature of this game, even if you have to play online, right? My Thursday night game, it's online. I'm playing with friends scattered around the country. Maybe you're playing with friends scattered around the world. You can't all be together. Maybe there's some extenuating circumstances or health issues, whatever. I'm not hating on online play. I do it all the time. But I still roll physical dice half of the time. And I still take physical notes because it does activate different parts of my brain, and it helps me remember stuff. And yeah. Yes, Chris will be too drunk to remember well, I could do the early stuff. Chris is going to be playing level 5. Have you played through Lost Mine of Phandelver? I know I've asked everyone at my tables that 10 times, but I can't remember who said what because I ask everybody that. I'm gonna roll some d6s. We're gonna start. All right, let's think about this. Let's hop around more. I don't want this to be too focused on one character. I want to show how pulling from different character backgrounds is going to create an adventure that everyone has a stake in, right? So out of the gate, the barkeep gets the plot hook for this, and this is a cool way to get the players communicating with each other. This is something I used to do a lot more often. Cool. I used to do more of this. I'm trying to get more and more to the narrative side. I started a new table, and then we started a new system, and it's been very, we've had there's a lot of good memories and a lot of good stories that come up at the table. Let's do the artist, because the artist got short shrift. That's the fifth player at the table who, maybe doesn't show up every session. Let's talk about their antagonistic organization. We're gonna go. Yeah, we'll do this in order. Oop, I forgot where I don't want it to fall. That's a 1. The Forger's Emporium, a network of greeter counterfeits whose work is devaluing real art. Forger's Emporium. So 1, that would upset an artist, right? That would speak to an artist archetype. But 2, who's dealing with the highest echelons of the art trade? The nobles, right? The people who we're getting a real political thing this time. So this drunk, maybe this drunk works for the Forger's Emporium. The Forger's Emporium, and they're devaluing art, and in particular context, particularly faux medieval fantasy society, art is also historical documentation, right? Or propaganda, or both. Especially if you're talking about predominantly illiterate populace, then art is the thing that's showing people their cultural heritage, right? Or the historic battle of Baker's Gap. Insert fantasy name here. The Battle of the Trident. What is that? That's Game of Thrones. The Battle of the Forks. So they were counterfeiters. And you may already have figured out how those connect for your story, for your world. I'm trying to, and it pains me to do so. You can hear me hemming and hawing. I am trying to suspend this pattern recognition side of my brain for as long as I can, because once things start to crystallize, that forms the structure. So let's pull from the artisan. The artisan. And let's go out of order. I'm going to do the evocative location because that just jumped out at me. And should we pick something? Let's roll. Let's roll one more time. Keep it as random as we possibly can. That's another 1. Artisan Alley, narrow street filled with sounds and smells, industry by day but crime by night. We actually pulled that. We pulled that last night, and we could absolutely use that again, because maybe this is where the Forger's Emporium meets up at night, right? There's an art shop here with all of this. I'm seeing kitchen and bath remodeling places and stuff, right? The fantasy medieval version of that going on in this neighborhood. But come by at night and you will find the Forger's Emporium, and that's where this drunk is stumbling to, or maybe this drunk is a fellow artist who has had their work counterfeited and who's feeling some sort of way about that. And if it comes out that all of these, all of the murals in the public square depicting the glorious rise of the emperor and their conquest of the local humanoid population that once lived here, if that turns out to all be counterfeit, right? Not only devaluing the monetary value of that, but if that's all lies, if it turns out that that's all propaganda, now we're going to be talking about potential for civil war, potential for I'm going to write this one down, taking away the foundations of the political order. I've never seen anyone ever buy anything from a light fixture store. It's true. Have I ever? The last light fixtures we bought were online, because it always takes us a while to agree on something. Most of my remodeling projects are a group effort. it does feel like a lot of those places are artifacts of a bygone era. There's a street by my house, and on that street are all these. I mean, it feels like they haven't been remodeled since the 50s. Maybe it's the 60s or the 70s, but like there's a vacuum repair store, and that brings me a lot of joy. But it's also like, when's the last time a new vacuum repair store opened? A fantasy a fantasy lighting store, right? All of these ever burning torches. I mean, that's like the high end stuff. But we're talking about the high end stuff here. Um, how many times do you have to cast the light cantrip on something before it becomes permanent? Or, I mean, is it like um, they don't really talk about enchantment that much in the baseline 5e. Glyphs are the closest thing. But even so, how do you extend a duration? Or you just upcast. You cast a 9th level light spell, and you just got one old wizard like once a day, bink, bink, and that's his retirement plan. Do we want to pick a new? Nah, we'll stick with Artisan Alley because we made a whole story about it, and in that I thought of the courtyard, sort of like the city square. Maybe it is like the courtyard, right? It's where the court is in front of the judicial buildings. It feels more like a city than a town, but maybe, I mean, if it's a little small town, maybe this is the courtyard is where we hang the gallows when we need them. That got, yeah, I guess it wasn't that quick. It took us 20 minutes to get dark. Let's look at the Acolyte now that we have a pretty good baseline. Oh, let's not forget our Acrobat, actually. Let's do the Acrobat's rivals. We're going to get a little circusy here, I think. So maybe let's do the thematic monster on the... Oh, I'm sorry. I'm cheating you out of the full experience. I don't know why I keep pointing at that camera. We got a 6. Net gremlins. Small. Prehensile tails. Cut safety nets. Throw nets. And poison darts. Well, now. That's dope. Maybe these net gremlins. I'm getting goblins times kobolds, right? Because like throwing nets and poisoned darts, that's a little more koboldy to me. Kobolds are going to be utilizing more because goblins 5e goblins have scimitars and bows, right? But like nets, man, are underutilized. So these things can throw a net as a bonus action. And yeah, they have prehensile tails, so maybe they have 2 hands for the net, and then the tails throwing the poison dart at you, and that's one round of attack. And it's a D4, save for being poisoned, right? But there's a lot of them. That's a lot of them. How many at bats does it take? How many D4s does it take to knock out a level 2 character, level 3 character? I like these net gremlins. And yes, a creature that is going to sabotage the net beneath an acrobat, going to speak to the acrobat for sure. And that's where they're just getting safety nets, right? And maybe they're just taking like the rigging off of ships. They're taking where else are we going to find nets in our medieval world? Maybe like in the marketplace, right? As like bags of fruit and such. And maybe they're stealing the hangman's rope, man. I'm putting a little hangman symbol. That's it. We got gallows. Yeah, that's an evocative location if I've ever heard of one. All right. So now we're going to take the acolytes. Apologies. We're going to take the acolytes rival. 2. Drakenthorn, bandit turned crime lord who thinks the order is a rich and easy target. And that kind of implies the acolytes order, but again, all of this is a little abstract and occasionally like wishy-washy because I'm leaving blanks for your brain to fill. So the order might be the current order, the current political order, and maybe Drakenthorn. Maybe this is where a little reversal happens, right? Drakenthorn is our acolyte's rival. So we establish, I don't do this a ton, but once in a while you can be like, oh yeah, you know this guy, right? And maybe you do it between sessions, maybe you do it like above the table, out of game, out of character. You talk to the player, hey, how do you feel about this? And kind of adapt things collaboratively to make it as interesting as possible. Like in a good group with a well-established rapport, you can do it on the fly too. So turning to one of the players and be like, oh yeah, you know this NPC, this is what you know about them. They're, you grew up together, but you went the hero route, they went the evil route, or whatever. Their hard luck story became a bandit, and they were smart but never had a lot of opportunities, so they became a bandit, and they became a very successful bandit, and now they are the crime lord. And maybe this is the drunk stumbling out of the bar, or maybe this is the person getting hung. First time. This is the person. They're setting up in the courtyard, in Court Square. They are setting up the gallows to hang Drakenthorn. And we just have to conceive of a reason why let's do one more plot hook now. Because I want a reason. Why do we have to save Drakenthorn? Why does the party have to save this character that they might not necessarily love? All right, because bandits are great low-level enemies, but then they become great high-level, kind of foils. 10. Let's say this is all a high level adventure, and we've got these little gremlin CR 1/2 1/4 creatures, and we've got bandits. The big bad is level 2. This is all narrative, and this is all pushing us towards whatever the appropriate mega dungeon or the appropriate gateway to the next plane. So I got a 10 for the acolyte. Let's see if this makes sense. A long forgotten sect returns to warn of a great danger approaching, but no one is listening. So maybe Drakenthorn is aware of a secret and has found some sort of faith, right? Maybe this is the parallel that's going to speak to the acolyte. See, that acolyte stuff. Once we start getting like deities and once the gods are involved, it's hard. The acolyte does want to take over, doesn't it? Also, A wants to take over. But yeah, in a fantasy world where the gods are existing and getting involved in things, yeah, you kind of have to listen to them. So Drakenthorn has found some long-forgotten secret or sect, uncovered their secrets, and is now trying to get people to understand that the powers that be, the Emperor, has not been exactly forthright with everybody. So this is a much more political one, I think, than the last one was more site-based. This is more of a city crawl kind of vibe. Or this is one of those sessions where maybe we don't touch the dice all that much because it is conversating. Different groups, different game masters are going to handle this different ways. Let if the player, we don't make the strong player. We let them do an athletics check, right? We don't make them lift the table over their head when their character's trying to do a thing. So it is not always fair to fall back on people's charisma when the character's trying. Maybe there's a disconnect between the player's ability to speak off the cuff or formulate a compelling argument and the characters, right? Their characters, a fantasy version, perhaps not even of themselves. So yeah, if you want to roll deception or persuasion or intimidation, then absolutely go for it. But it can be very interesting when a player character makes a very compelling argument. If it's something that the non-player character would buy, then you don't need to let the dice ruin it, right? I'm all about letting the dice determine stuff. But if you've been with me for a while, in the last few years, I don't use a Dungeon Master screen. All of my dice rolls are on camera or on the table. So I don't fudge, right? And in the past, if a player made an awesome argument and they rolled poorly, I would roll a check on my side, basically, like contest it. And as long as that wasn't a natural one, okay, maybe I'm gonna fudge it. These days I can't do that. I don't do that. And I think some of the, somebody rolls a natural 20, everybody gets excited, it's awesome. Big numbers, good, amazing. But some of my favorite sessions were ones where we barely touched the dice, and it's a nice change of pace because it's all very combat heavy, and you can't do that stuff in combat, right? You can't describe how expertly you poke at the guy's weak spot. Peace, Chris. Get shoes, run fast. So when the player does the smart thing, you can let it happen. You can always let it happen. As the game master, you decide when the dice get touched, right? I've seen people role playing, ROLL versus ROLE, role playing. But I've seen people try to roll to solve a puzzle or something. And if that's your vibe, then cool. I'm not hating on anybody, but this game can be so much more than just gambling, right? It's not just craps. It is craps. It is gambling. It is testing the fates and luck, but it can be so much more than that. And I'm hopeful that this will help you all do that. We made a pretty decent, we made the bones of a story, right? Where does this story take us? Well, let's connect it again. Let's do another round of that because we do need to get to, these gremlins are running around and these gremlins were displaced and maybe they were taking care of something. Let's get another monster. Let's get another monster off of... Let's go back to the barkeep, right? We started at the barkeep. The barkeep had the inciting incident. The barkeep heard what's going to bring all this into resolution. So let's see if this gives us anything. The Rat King we got last time. I rolled a lot of ones with these dice. I'm going to have to remember that. That's a D6, but still. A cask mimic. Oh, love it. Typically disguised as kegs and barrels, young ones imitate jugs and flasks. So there's some sort of mimic situation going on in town. Or at the bar. That's good, but mimics are hard to build around. They're like a nice gonzo add-in. You can have a mimic that communicates, right? You can have a mastermind mimic, and that would be interesting. So maybe this mimic, maybe the gremlins were feeding this mimic, right? Before the Empire came and displaced them, right? I like that. Sometimes it's fun to do these little twists, especially if the gremlins are no longer a threat, then they can become a faction, right? And then they can also surprise the players and become a threat because you're in a net. Now they're rolling with advantage, and there's 1,000 of them throwing little D4 darts at you. Oh, geez, I didn't know that's how the math worked. Or you're poisoned. And it doesn't just have to be the poison condition. Oh, I'm immune to that. It's no, this is something different. This is a particular kind of poison. Make your save. Oh, now you get a dead arm, right? You're paralyzed in that arm. You're doing everything with disadvantage. Whatever it is. You are diseased. You are making saves that progressively get worse every time you take a long rest. Hey, make a Constitution saving throw. Why? Oh, no reason. Just keep it. There's different ways to make that escalate. So they were feeding this mimic, and now this mimic is hungry, and it is going to leave its... Do we want it under the bar, or do we want it... It pops up in... It's going to pop up in the bar. Let's do a friendly... let's do a location for our... Or the artist or the artisan? What do we say? Let's do artisan. Actually, we have his alley. Yeah, let's do an artist. And we can reverse all this stuff too. I can take a I can take a friendly faction and make it a not so friendly faction. I can make a rival into a friend. The Marble Garden Sculpture Collection that is actually petrified creatures and humanoids. Whoa. Whoa. That just did a lot for me. So this emperor is perhaps an empress and is a Medusa. Or has a pet basilisk, or insert petrification theme here. And maybe, because that's the thing about art. I don't know if we, oh, it's on this page. Forges important, a network of greedy counterfeiters who work is devaluing real art. So the real art are these petrified creatures. They are selling statuary. It doesn't have to be paintings. They're making statues, and these are just statues. And the truth is that the statues in the sculpture garden, which is like the scattered around this courtyard where the gallows are hung, where poor Mr. Drakenthorn is about to meet his doom. He's yelling. Maybe he's the guy at the bar yelling about this, and he gets picked up for spreading disinformation. And maybe this story about him being a crime lord is just is cooked up, right? And the Acolyte's the only one that knows him from back in the day and knows that it can't be true that Drakenthorn is a criminal. Drakenthorn belongs to the some weird, sect of the order that the Acolyte belongs to. So you know it's not a criminal. You heard this guy saying this the other night at the bar, that the sculptures are not sculptures. And people spreading, maybe they're replacing them. That's the classic heist, right? Maybe we have this political intrigue, but maybe we also have a heist situation on our hands, right? Maybe we want to foil one, or maybe we want to replace one of these statues because could the Mimic be doing it, or does the Emperor do it? I think the Emperor does it. The statues of the conquests are in fact the petrified versions of these creatures. And all of a sudden, the statues are disappearing. The statues are disappearing because they're coming back to life. And forgeries are being created to replace these missing statues. Maybe the Forges Emporium are patsies here. Maybe they're blamed for it, and it's not their fault. They don't even do statuaries. They're doing their paintings, and when these statues start disappearing, they're the first ones that the authorities go to. Or maybe they are commissioned to replace these statues, and one by one, these monsters are coming back. That's an interesting adventure seed, because slowly but surely, when do the players recognize that's what's happening, right? That's a fun thing to drop breadcrumbs for the whole time. And we have all of these town maps, and we pull them out for like shopping days or stuff. But like, one of the points of this is being willing to kill your darlings, right? So if you are armed with the ability to generate idea after idea after idea, crafting, pulling on all the threads that the players are bringing to the table, you can burn down what you have with reckless abandon. Right, so there's the dungeon and there's the town, and nary the twain shall meet. But like, I've had some epic battles in towns. People hopping up on roofs, ducking down through alleys. Maybe there's sewers underneath. There were sewers underneath last night. What we were talking about, and all of a sudden, all these little gremlin boys, who the Emperor took, and the Emperor of, maybe it's just like a small little podunk town, and the Emperor, his empire is a few acres large, but all of these gremlins start reanimating and causing havoc, and buildings are getting burnt down. Various locations around the town are all popping off at once. Maybe we're gonna have to split the party or make some sacrifices. All of the NPCs that we rolled up during character creation are under threat, right? There's carrots and sticks involved. The locations of the friendly factions, and not to mention relatives and potential magic items, are all under threat. And now the clock is ticking. And either they figure out that the Emperor has made a deal with the wrong person, or is in fact petrified these things that he pretended to have defeated, or maybe it's secretly an evil Medusa. Your mileage may vary depending on the CR challenge you're looking for here. And by rescuing Drakenthorn, at least from the rope, right, we can crack the code, or we can put the pieces together ourselves. That the statues are slowly being replaced because they're coming back to life, and that gigantic mimic thing, it's only a matter of time before more and more challenging creatures emerge. That's a pretty good adventure. That's a good hour's worth of work, I think. And I would just lay down the town map, and how many net gremlins are there? As many as we need, right? Maybe when their brethren start reanimating, the displaced ones start coming back too. And again, I want you to have the freedom to just to experience the reckless abandon that comes from conducting an apocalyptic scenario where everything is on fire. All of the plans, all of the prep goes out the window, and you know you can replace it and build on what you collectively as a group have established at the table already. Because the stuff that you prepare in a vacuum, you know, doing it this way helps a lot. But the stuff you prepare by yourself is never going to be as rich as the stuff you prepare or don't prepare that arises organically through play. And if I wasn't narrating it as I did it and talking to chat while I was doing it, it wouldn't have taken an hour to do this. I could have taken one of these. I mean, you could turn to a random. Let's do that real quick. How much time do I have? I have 5 minutes left. It's game night. I gotta hit the road. But I don't even know who's this. Is the barkeep again? Yeah. Let's do. Who haven't we looked at in a minute? Who did we skip? Animal Whisperer. And there's going to be more than these 7, obviously. That's why we had a whole Kickstarter about it. There's going to be 50 of these. But let's go real fast. That's a 2. That's a 6. That's a 3. That's a 4. Because maybe a character has died, right? Maybe not only have we burnt down our... And I just rolled a 12 on the D20 for a plot hook. Maybe our... You know, we built this whole bespoke adventure as using the acolyte's background as the linchpin, right? And now the acolyte dies. What do we do? That character's gone. They just rolled up a ranger. They rolled up an animal whisperer. They wanted to do a druid. How do we introduce them? Well, I just rolled 4d6 and a d12. I could have done this while we went and got sodas and took a bathroom break. There's a black market selling parts of poached animals for questionable ends. That feels like it could easily be related to the counterfeiters, right? And if there's some exotic beasts petrified, right? You cut the horn off the rhino statue, and it becomes real rhino horn. Somebody figures that out. So the Horn Cartel, we'll do it this way. The Clockwork Wood. Mad gnomes have created mechanical beasts who run amok here. I'm just in love with that. That's the kind of thing you put on the map. One day, someone's going to be like, "What is going on at the Clockwork Wood?" Hard to say. A lot of fun to think about. Mechanical beasts. I mean, oh dear. It's a gorgon, right? A gorgon is a construct. A gorgon in I almost said actuality, but originally in Greek literature, Medusa was a gorgon. But in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, it's this weird mechanical bull thing that petrifies people. So maybe the secret the Emperor has is that he used a gorgon to petrify the net gremlins and whoever else used to live where town is now. And that only lasts maybe it's a century, right? Maybe out of living memory for humans. Paraquin the Magnificent, a mage creating monstrosities through animal experimentation. Boo. I mean, that would get the blood boiling for sure. But again, we can re-choose stuff if we want to fold it in better, but that's fine. I mean, again, it doesn't all have to fit together. Maybe that, I mean, a mage doing weird stuff somewhere belongs in your game. And if you run sandboxes like I do, you want a ton of options because the players are not going to engage with all of them. You're going to have, if you're following the recipe, you're going to make 3 times as much stuff than they actually are going to ever interact with if you want to have options at the table. So you need just this much, really. Like, I will figure out more about Perquin the Magnificent and what he sounds like and what kind of experimentations he's actually doing and what the monstrosities are when the time comes. Because if I decide it's gonna be Manticore and Chimera is more appropriate, or some wacky new thing arrives on my doorstep in the intervening weeks before they find him, it's better him, Perquin, yeah, him. Before they find them, Perquin can be a little undefined, and with tools like this, I can define him in the moment. I could go roll on a sage when the sage is complete. Let's do one more oh no, I got it. It's a 4. Diamond dogs, firebirds, wind serpents, water bears, and other elemental beast hybrids. I mean, that's clearly what the wizard's cooking up. That's clearly what the wizard's cooking up. So I have this whole, what am I going to do if my whole town burns down? Well, I'm glad you asked. I'm really excited to burn my whole town down because I have this adventure idea about a wizard in the midst of this like forest where these gnomes that he has driven these gnomes mad. They used to work for him. I'm getting like Santa Claus vibes almost too. These gnomes are making these clockwork beasts. Meanwhile, the wizard up in the tower is taking those clockwork beasts and real live beasts and magical concentrations of elemental energies and creating water bears, diamond dogs, firebirds. Like, yes, please. Let me throw all of that. Hey, we had this whole like political intrigue thing in town. Now I'm just throwing crazy monsters at you for a couple sessions. We're gonna get the combat out of us. You leveled up. You want to try all your new stuff? Cool. And we'll go back to town once we rebuild it. And yeah, we'll have a beach episode and go shopping. Let's look at the plot hook. I don't even think we need it, but let's say we're bringing in a new character. We're gonna pre-arm this character with some sort of seed if we're running it sandboxy to like plug in, like maybe it's 3 steps ahead. The new guy doesn't show up and we do what he thinks right away unless our plate is cleared. And if everything just burnt down and we defeated them, if the mayor turned out to be an egomaniac emperor who was all full of lies, and we've restored the net gremlins to their rightful home, I guess, is where that would lead, potentially. With a lot of tables I've run, that's probably where it would go. Or whatever, everyone's dead and everything's ashes, and we don't have any other leads. So yeah, we'll go do your thing, new guy. 12. He said he was collecting bones to render glue, but then the patchwork animal skeletons attacked. Oh God, so we're back to the tooth fairy. That's why. I mean, that's the wizard, right? The wizard like comes into town in this like pauper's garb, with a donkey cart, and he collects bones because he's making glue somewhere in the clockwork wood because no one wants it near town because rendering, I'm sure, smells terrible. I don't know. How do you make glue? How do you make old-timey glue? Actually, don't answer that. And then patchwork animal skeletons. So like, yeah, necromancy vibes. Man, that's a full adventure. And was that 5 minutes? That was 7 minutes. I got excited. I kind of went on a tangent there a little bit. That was 7 minutes. To prep the idea for an adventure. And like, okay, yeah, do I need to prepare a map? I can Google. I bet if let's Clockwork Woods. Let's do it. Let's do it live, huh? Let's do it live. I do got to get out of here. But I just like this so much. Clockwork Woods battle map. What do you got, Google? What do you got? Embarrass me in front of a live studio audience. What? There's some cool stuff here. There's some cool stuff here. I mean, I could just grab a forest map, but there's some real interesting clockwork things. And I could, you know, if you're a little bit experienced, at least, if you're comfortable enough, you could stock on the fly. I don't know. This one is just like really calling out my name. There's some cool stuff in here, and I could throw in monsters, and like it's going to be obvious. Let's make this a little bit bigger. You know, put the wizard in one of these rooms, and there's somewhere there's a switch on this map, and now these gears start turning. What does that mean? It's difficult terrain. Doors start opening and closing, right? Like I would probably stock a map in prep, not on the fly, but you could do it. You could conceptually do it, because I know, and there's 4 or 5 kinds of monsters, and I could just grab a bear stat block or a mephit stat block or any sort of elemental stat block, and there's no Firebird. I mean, Water Bear's cool, right? Water Bear's cool. It's the tardigrade, right, is a water bear, and like there should be a giant one of those, sure, but there should absolutely be a Firebird. There should be a Phoenix, right, in the monster manual. How is that not a thing? Next time on the Verdigris Table. No, I don't know, we're not going to do that, but we're going to be streaming. We're going to stream tomorrow night. Come hang out. We'll make some adventures. Maybe we'll do some like Q&A stuff. Get in the Discord if you have any questions about the Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation, or anything else for that matter. D&D, Pathfinder, game mastering, character creation, the future of tabletop as we know it. All of these things and more are up for discussion next time on the Verdigris Table. Thank you so much for watching. Be kind. Have fun. Back the Kickstarter if you haven't already. Tell your friends if you have, because the more people contributing to that, the bigger and better the thing is going to be for all of us. Thanks again. Love you guys. Have fun. I know you're going to be kind, so I'm not